Hello there and welcome to our third video in our series looking at paper 2, which is our practical programming paper. I've got a question here which looks like a dry run question, so let's jump straight in. iSown wishes to avoid bookings being accidentally entered twice by searching for identical booking IDs in sequential time slots. They have a pre-populated array called bookings with the following data, and we're provided with the data there. Then see below we have an algorithm, and it asks us to copy and complete the table to show the outputs of the algorithm for the inputs provided, and that's a total of 8 marks. So we've been provided with this table off to the right hand side here, and all we need to do is dry run this algorithm and populate it. Now with any dry running algorithm, my first tactic is to always write down the variables. So I've got I've got position, I've got found, and I think, let's have a look, is that it? That looks like it is, yes. So here, these match what is in my table. I've got position and found in my table as well. And the reason why I write down my variables is so I can basically add or change them as I'm running line by line in a sequential fashion. So I'm going to start at line number 1. Begin subroutine, search for DB. Now it says set I equals 1. So I'll set I to equal 1. And then it says set position equals -1. So position is going to get the value of -1. And then found is false. And I'll use the F to write that instead of writing false every time or true. And then I've got a repeat on line 6. So I want to repeat until I equals 5. Now currently I is not equal to 5, so it's going to keep running until that I reaches 5 there. Then it says if bookings I. Now there's square brackets here, so what I say is if bookings at the position of I. Now remember what bookings is. So bookings is an array, and it's been provided with different elements for that array. Now remember, arrays are 0 based, so they start at 0, and here it says bookings 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are my indexes here. Okay, so an array is made up of different parts. We've got an index, we've got the identifier, which is called bookings. And inside each one of these has an individual element itself. Now arrays are of one data type only, and this data type, it turns out, is integer. So on line 7, the question says, if bookings at the position of I, so what is at the position of I inside the bookings array? Well, we're looking at this one here, because I is equal to 1. Then it says, I'll write the element down at that position there. Then it says, is it the same as what is at bookings inside the bookings array at I minus 1? So I is currently 1. We minus 1 from it becomes 0. So what is inside the array at the position of 0? And it turns out that is 2. Okay? Because it's an if statement, we evaluate this as a logical condition, and we say, is 3 equal to 2? And that is false. 3 is not equal to 2. Then what we do is, because it fails, it jumps down to line number 14, because this is the else part of our if statement. It says else set position to equal I plus 1. So I is currently 1. We add 1 to it, that becomes 2. And we store that inside the variable position. So -1 gets removed from position, and we get the output of 2. Then it says output position equals position. And because it says output, this is what's going to go inside our table. So inside here, we're going to output it, and we're going to put 2 in there. And then we're going to say output found equals found. And what is found currently? Found is false. So here we're going to put false. End the if statement, and then we jump to line 22, which says set I, so change the variable I, to equal I plus 1. So I is currently 1. we add 1 to it, and that becomes 2. So the trick with pseudocode is to stay very neat and stay very organised. Now I know in my head I am on line number 22 and I've just completed that and updated that variable there. So I'm just going to neaten this up just so we stay organised. And then after line 22 we go to line 24 until I equals 5. Keep looping. So I is currently 2, it's not 5, so we're going to loop and jump back up to line number 6 and start the process again. If bookings I, this time I is 2, so we're looking at this one here, and the element position there is number 3. Is that equal to bookings I minus 1? Well, I is 2, minus 1 from it is 1, so what's at bookings in position 1? Well, that's 3 as well, because we're looking at these two elements here, this one and this one. Now, because they're the same, when we compare them as a logical condition, that output's true. They are the same. So we go to line number 8 because the condition is true, and we set position to equal I plus 1. So position is given the value of I plus 1. I is 2, add 1 to it, becomes 3. So position changes from 2 to 3. And then it says output position equals position, and that means we put the position outputted in our table, and then we say set found equals true. So found changes its value to true. And that means we update it and output it in our table, because on line 12 it says output found equals true. And there we go. Once we've done that, we finish this, we jump to the line 20 because we've finished the if statement now, and then we say set I, which is currently 2, and we're going to assign it 2 plus 1, which is 3. So I gets overwritten with the value of 3. Line number 24, until I equals 5, continue. So I is not 5, it's 3 currently, so we jump back up to line number 6, and we say if bookings at the position of I, so I is now 3. So what is at that element position? That's 7. Is 7 the same as I minus 1? So I is 3, minus 1 from it is 2. So we're going to look behind us again. And is 7 the same as 3? Now when we compare this, as far as I'm concerned, 7 is not the same as 3. So we fail this condition and we jump to the else statement, which is on line 14. It says set position to equal I plus 1. So I is currently 3. So that increments to 4, and we put that 4 value in position. So position becomes 4 now. So I've done that. Line 16 says output position equals position. So position is 4, so let's output that here. And then it says output found equals found. Now found is currently true, so we just output true. We've not been told to change it to false, so it stays as is. Once we've done that, we end the if statement, we go to line 22 and we change I is overwritten with I plus 1. I is currently 3, add 1 to it is 4, and that overwrites. So now we change this variable here to 4. Line number 24, do the condition again. Is I the same as 5? It's not. I is 4. 4 is not the same as 5. So we jump back up to the repeat and we continue on line number 7. And we say, what is inside the bookings array at the position of I? And that is I is 4. So that means 8 is what we're looking at. That's the element. And is 8 the same as bookings at the position of I minus 1? I is 4, minus 1 is 3. What is inside the bookings array at the position of 3? And that is 7. So is 8 the same as 7? Turns out that is false. So we jump to the else part again on line 14. Set position equals I plus 1. I is 4, that increments to 5, and then we store that in position. So position is now 5. Then it says output the position. So I output 5 in my table. And then it says output found equals found. Found is still true, so we output true in our table. End the if statement. Then we set I to equals I plus 1. I is currently 4. That increments by 1 and goes to 5. So that's 5 now. And then it says until I equals 5. Well, I is now 5, so we break out the loop, and then we don't loop up back to 6. We just continue on to 25, then on to 26, and we end the subroutine. And that's it. Each one of these is worth 2 marks, and that is a total of 8. So top tips for dry running algorithms: take your time, write your variables down, ask for a bit of scrap piece of paper, and take it nice and slowly. We can't afford to make any mistakes at any of the steps because it will send us in a different direction. And I hope that helped.